What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Dark World deck profile. So I'm really excited to do some for you guys because this deck is an extremely powerful deck that can make some absolutely incredible boards. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of our notification squad, and definitely check the Patreon in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like getting your name description in a single video, getting your signed cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're playing 3 copies of Rainbow. Rainbow is definitely a 3 of in this deck. This card has a crazy powerful effect that you can special summon this card from your graveyard by returning a level 7 or lower Dark World monster you control back to your hand. Which is a great effect to be able to bring out this 3000 attack point monster. Also, if this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, you can actually add a level 5 or higher Dark World monster from your deck to your hand, except another copy of Rainbow, which is an awesome ability to instantly grab another Dark World card, like your copy of Grapha or even Silva, which is such a cool ability to instantly grab the exact card that you need. We then play 2 copies of Grapha. Grapha is definitely a 2 of in the build, and this card shares a similar effect to your copy of Rainbow, as you can special summon this card from your graveyard by returning a face-up Dark World monster you control back to your hand, and if this card is discarded to the graveyard, you can target a card your opponent controls and destroy that target. We then play 2 copies of Silva. Silva is insane in this deck as a 2-0 because this card can actually hand loop your opponent, as this card is a crazy powerful effect that if this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, you can special summon this card from the graveyard, and if it was discarded to the graveyard from your hand by a card effect of your opponent has to return exactly 2 cards from their hand to the bottom of the deck in any order, which is an insane effect to be able to use, especially with our copies of Cerule being able to make it so our opponent discards this card from our hand, making it so we can loop our opponent's hand, which is insane. We then play 3 copies of Snow. Snow is really cool because if this card is discarded to the graveyard, you get to add a Dark World card from your deck to your hand, which is such a powerful effect to instantly grab the exact card that you need off your copy of Snow. We then play 3 copies of Genta. Genta's definitely a 3 of in the build as well. This card is like terraforming for the deck, that you can actually discard this card to the graveyard to add a copy of the Gates of the Dark World from your deck to your hand. And if this card is banished and you control a Dark World card, you can special summon this card to your side of the field from the banishment, which is great to be able to use, but you can only special summon this card by its own effect once per turn. We then play a single copy of Cerule. Cerule is definitely a 1 of in the build, and an absolutely broken card in this deck. As if this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, you can special summon this card from your graveyard to your opponent's side of the field, which is a really cool ability because then this card has a crazy power effect that when this card is special summoned by the effect of a Dark World card, your opponent then discards a card, basically making it so we can actually discard our copy of Silva and get rid of 2 cards out of our opponent's hand. And we have some very easy ways in this deck to be able to balance this card back to our hand and balance our copy of Silva back to our hand, so we can just discard them again and loop our opponent's hand, so they basically don't start with any cards, which is insane. We then play a single copy of Danger Bigfoot. Danger Bigfoot is crazy powerful to play in the deck, but you only need a single copy of this card. All of your danger monsters share a common effect. If you can reveal them in your hand, your opponent randomly chooses a card from your hand, you discard the chosen card, then if the discarded card was not the danger that you revealed, you special summon that danger monster from your hand, and if you do, draw a card. But all your danger monsters have a unique effect if they are discarded to the graveyard, and your copy of Bigfoot has the ability that if it's discarded, you get to target a face-up card that your opponent controls and destroy that target. We then play 3 copies of Nessie. Nessie's definitely a 3 of in the deck as well, because this card has the ability, if this card is discarded, you get to add a danger card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of Nessie, which is such a powerful effect to instantly grab the exact danger that you need. We then play 2 copies of Mothman. Mothman is great in the deck as a 2-0 because this card has the ability if it's discarded, both players draw a card and then both players discard a card, which is great for this deck. So we can basically just go through the cards and dig into the deck for the exact card that we need. We then play 2 copies of Chupacabra. Chupacabra is really good as a 2 of in the build because this card has the ability, if this card is discarded, you can actually target a danger monster in the graveyard and special summon it, except a copy of Chupacabra, which is such a cool ability to be able to use. We then play 2 copies of Jackalope. Jackalope just recently went to 2 on the most recent list, which is why I wanted to update this deck. But this card is really cool to be able to play in the deck because it has the ability, if this card is discarded, you can special summon a danger monster from your deck and defense system, getting the exact danger you want on your side of the field. We then play 2 copies of Danger Tsuchinoko. Tsuchinoko, or Danger Noodle, is really cool as a 2-of in the deck, because regardless if this card is discarded, you get to special summon this card out to your side of the field, which is a great effect that regardless when you activate this card's effect, it's going to summon itself to your side of the field, which is such a cool effect. So, that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get in to the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Card Destruction. Card Destruction is great in this deck because it makes all of our Dark World cards go off, which is absolutely insane. This card is definitely a 1-of in the deck. It's currently at 1. If I could play 3 copies of this card, I definitely would, because it's one of the most powerful cards in the entire build, as it makes every one of our monsters go off, which is insane. We then play a single copy of Dark World Archives. Archives is really cool in the deck as a 1-of, because during your main phase, you can discard a Dark World monster, and if you do, Dark World monsters that you currently control gain attack equal to the level the discarded monster had in the hand times 100 until the end of the turn. Also, if a monster whose original type is Fiend is discarded from your hand by the effect of a Dark World card or an opponent's card effect, even during the damage step, you can discard a card and then draw 2 cards, which is such a powerful effect to help us dig into the deck for more cards. We then play 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. Triple Tactics Talent is really cool in the deck as a 2-of, because this card has the ability to either let us draw 2 cards, take control of one of our opponent's monsters, or we look at our opponent's hand and choose a card from it and shuffle it back in the deck, basically getting rid of hand traps, which is really cool. But this card is great in the deck as a 2-of, just in case our opponent hand traps us, we can draw 2 cards and keep digging into the deck for more combo pieces. We then play 2 copies of Dark Corridor. Dark Corridor is insane in this deck as a 2-of, because this card is basically Rhoda for the deck, that you can add a Dark World monster from your deck to your hand, then you discard a card, but you can only activate 1 of this card per turn, which is why we just play 2 copies of this card, because it's really good in the deck, but 2 copies is really all you need, since it is a once per turn. We then play 2 copies of the Dark World Fusion spell. This card is really good as a 2-of in the deck, and absolutely insane to help us make our copy of Grapha, Dragon Overlord of Dark World. This card has the ability that during the main phase, you get to fusion summon a Fiend Fusion monster from your X deck by banishing the materials mentioned on it from the field or the grave. And if you're going to fusion summon a Dark World monster this way, you can also discard monsters as material as well, which is such a powerful effect to be able to use to help us basically just go in for a copy of Grapha, because it's basically a negate, which is really cool. This card also has the ability during the main phase, if it's in the graveyard, you can add this card back to your hand and then discard a Dark World monster, which is a great ability to not only make one of our Dark World monsters go off, but also make it so we can use this card to go in for a fusion play. We then play 3 copies of Allure of Darkness. Allure of Darkness is amazing as a 3-of in the build, just to help us basically dig into the deck, because this card lets us draw 2 cards and then banish a dark monster, which is really cool to be able to use in this build, just to help us dig deeper into the deck. We then play 3 copies of the Gates of the Dark World. Gates is definitely a 3-of in the deck, and this is one of those powerful cards in the entire build. This makes so all Fiend type monsters gain 300 attack and defense, and once per turn, you can banish a Fiend monster from your graveyard, discard a Fiend monster, and then draw a card, which is a really insane ability, and it's a really awesome card to be able to play in the deck, because Jinta can get to this card, and it is a soft once per turn, so for every single copy that you activate, you can activate it again, which is so cool to be able to do. So, that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get in to the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to start off with the Grapha Fusion. Grapha Dragon Overlord of Dark World. This card is such a cool card, and it's basically an insane boss monster that requires a copy of Grapha plus a dark monster to make this card. And when your opponent activates a monster effect or a normal spell or trap card, while you have a card in your hand, quick effect, you can activate this effect. The activated effect becomes your opponent discards a card, which is crazy that the opponent is activating a card that's going to make us discard a card, which is going to make our Dark World cards go off. This card is really insane because it does disrupt your opponent's plays, and it's just a really cool card effect. Also, if this fusion summon card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can special summon one of your copies of Grapha to your side of the field, which is a great ability to be able to instantly summon a Grapha, then each player with a hand discards a card, which is such a cool effect. We might see a copy of number 38. Number 38 is great in the deck as a spell negate and just a really cool card overall in the deck. And then play a single copy of number 41, Bagooska. Bagooska is just really good just in case we need to slow down the game a little bit. This card comes in clutch in the deck, and it's just a really cool card. We then play a single copy of number 60. Dagaris is really good in the deck because this card has 3 awesome abilities. That it either lets you draw 2 cards and then discard a card, you can special summon a monster back in the graveyard in defense position, or you can also double the attack of 1 monster you control until the end phase, making it very easy to OTK your opponent. I really like this card as a 1-of in the build. We then play a single copy of Underworld Goddess. Underworld Goddess is great just in case we need to out a towers like boss monster. Play a single copy of Yugioh. It's so easy to swarm the deck in this build. So this card is really good overall in the deck to basically draw 4 and also give us the ability to special summon a monster from our hand. And play a single copy of Nightmare Griffin. I really feel like the Griffin lock is insane in this deck, and it's just really cool overall to make this card in the basically monster zone and have a copy of Mudracker pointing towards it to basically lock down your opponent. But this card is really good overall in the build. Plus, it can help you get your spells and traps, which is really, really cool, because when it's summoned out to your side of the field, you discard a card, target a spell or trap in the grave, and set it back to your side of the field, which is a crazy powerful effect to be able to use. Then play a single copy of Nightmare Unicorn to spin stuff, 1 copy of the Dark Charmer. Dark Charmer is amazing in this deck as one to basically help us link climb. 1 copy of SP Little Knight. SP Little Knight's great in the build as one to basically use this card as a double interruption, and it's a great card overall in the build. Play a single copy of Akashic Magician and a single copy of Security Dragon. These cards basically do the exact same thing in this deck. They basically bounce a card they point to because they are just help us bounce our copy of Cerule and Silva back to our hand. So always make your copy of Cerule and Silva above extra monster zones or below extra monster zones, so you can basically bounce them back to your hand, so you can use them all over again with Akashic Magician and Security Dragon, being able to bounce them back to your hand simultaneously so that you can go into more plays and basically loop your opponent's hand. And then a single copy of Mudracker. Mudracker is really good as a 1-of in the deck because this card is great to be able to make in the extra monster zone and have it point to Nightmare Griffin to Griffin lock your opponent, because this card has the ability. Also, if it's on your side of the field, you can discard a card and then bring back a Fiend from your graveyard, which is great to be able to do. It does Fiend lock you for the rest of the turn. That's not that big of a deal because it's what we summon usually in the deck by the time we get to this part in the combo. We then finally play a single copy of IP. IP is just a really cool card overall in the deck to be able to play. I did consider playing Cross Sheep over this card, but there's been a lot of situations that have been playing this card in this deck and have been going into Underworld Goddess during the opponent's turn, or even going into Nightmare Unicorn during the opponent's turn, even SP. So there's just so many options in this extract to be able to use your copy of IP. I feel like it's just really good in the deck overall, but you can change it out for Cross Sheep if you want to. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played a Dark World deck before, you should definitely give this deck a try because it's so fun to be able to play, and it's insane how powerful this deck actually is to be able to just summon out all sorts of awesome monsters to your side of the field and help you go in for game. Plus, this deck just looks so cool. So that's gonna be this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell near so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.